So, what would you guys do if you found out that your brother was actually your sister? And on top of that, this was your new step sibling from a new marriage that your father remarried into. And you didn't know that your brother was your sister until way later. So that's what this manga is going to be about today in today's Manga Look. So, of course, to give you guys the author of this manga is Shirai Muku, right? Along with his artist, because this is a teamwork thing, and Sakai Shokichi, right? Then Shokichi does a really good job at drawing the art style. The art style is pretty good, pretty cute. Muku does the writing, and so far he's doing a pretty good job in this story. Now, to give the title of this sort of ridiculous synopsis that I gave you at the beginning, it's called Jitsu wa Imouto deshita Saikin dekita giri no ototo no kyorikan ga yattara chikai wake. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm not 100% sure. I can do decent pronunciations of Japanese, but it's not that great. The English title is She Was Actually My Stepsister, or a little bit longer. Recently, the sense of distance between me and my new stepbrother is incredibly close, right? But I'm just going to go with the shorter title, She Was Actually My Stepsister, or Jitsu wa Imouto deshita. Yeah. So that's what today's manga look is going to be covering. I think this manga was an interesting one. It's another rom-com with a hint of slice of life and some drama here or there. From so far, the drama wasn't too bad. It does have brother-sister romance, I guess, but I don't even know if you would consider them brother-sister considering they're step-siblings. But lo and behold, those of you who like Orimo might like this series. I read it because I found it interesting. I honestly think it's a decent story, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So, you know what we do? We cover the first chapter, and we're going to jump right to that. Alright, so the beginning first chapter starts off pretty unique, right? It starts off with our main protagonist reading a book while his the now known sister is on top of him. And so he asks his sister, whose name is Akira, telling her that it's time to sleep, get off of me already. And she's like, nah, just 5 more minutes. And he starts to have like this like thinking cap on what is happening. He said, it was too late when I heard I was going to have a sibling, that I foolishly misunderstood that she was going to have a little brother. She's about a year younger than him. So, just to put that out there. No, it turns out he had a little sister, right? So she calls out his name, right? And the next panel, we have like a nice cover spread of like the arts of our boy, his younger sister Akira, his best friend, and his younger sister, I think. It's been a while since I've read it. I'm doing this off the cuff. So we have a nice little side panel where his sister Akira, his stepsister, asks him if he would like to sleep together, which is a crazy thing to say to your stepbrother. Crazy. What the fuck? When I first read that, I was like, okay, hold on, we're moving way too quickly for this story. He then continues his thought saying, I never thought that Akira would actually turn out to be my stepsister, which in hindsight, it's this motherfucker's fault for not noticing. But I digress. We finally jump into another panel after that where he tells her, hey, you're joking, right? And she just ignores him, says whatever, good night, falls asleep. And then he says, hey, that's my futon. But she's already asleep. And he then thinks to himself, as for why this stepsister of mine became so attached to me, it happened not too long after the beginning of July. So the first chapter is him basically telling us how he met his sibling and how he confused her for a boy before he found out it was a girl in the next chapter. But I'm not covering chapter 2. You guys gotta go read that. So, to start it off, right, we have our boy talking to his dad at the kitchen table, right? Where he's basically, they're having normal chit chat. His dad talking about a foreigner that he spoke on the train with, and how he helped him out. And our main protag, tells him that he did a good thing doing that. And the dad, all smug, says, "Yeah, you're right. I should probably start taking English classes. It would only be a waste of money." And so the son responds, "It would only be a waste of money, so don't." Because the dad felt so hyped up for helping a foreign lady with her situation, despite, the translation issue. The dad responds with, "I think I thought it was a good idea." The son smartly or like snarkily replies, "If you want to do something, do it something that you could stick with," because apparently his dad has a hard time sticking with things. Apparently, so the dad just brings up, "Hey, so is the remarrying thing okay?" Right? And he's like, so our boy responds, "Well, if it's remarriage," transitioning us to the next panel where he picks up on the fact that his dad just dropped the bombshell of remarrying and spits out his water, and he says, "Remarriage? What the fuck?" Making his dad laugh because he saw his son fucking lose it and spit out his food. So he looks at his dad and says, "Dad, are you serious?" And his dad nods, and he verifies, "Hey, it's not a prank." The dad says, "No, son, it's not a prank," which is crazy thing to think your dad's pranking you with remarrying someone. But he thought that was the case here. So we continue, right? He says, the dad admits, "Look, I may have pranked you many times, but you know that I've never lied to you, right? Not even once." So the son responds with, our main prototype responds, "Everything you do smells shady, Dad." That's the reason why. And then he thinks back to his biological mother, which causes our protagonist to like kind of realize what he's saying, right? So he responds with, "So who is this unfortunate woman who fell for my father?" And he basically caught himself because he was about to talk about his mom and would ruin his dad's mood. Basically making the assumption, giving us the indication that his mom is not a good person and his dad does not have a very amicable relationship with her. And by the looks of it, neither does our main protagonist, because if he did, he probably would just talk about her, or I don't know how this works. I don't know how this would work, right? In his mind. But there's clearly conflict with the bio mom, right? The dad talks about how he met his new fiance at a photo shoot. Her name is Miyuki, and turns out she's a freelance makeup artist, and he tells his son how she's a pretty cool person, which surprises our main protag, right? In the next panel, our protagonist asks how long you've been dating her. He says it's been almost 2 years, and he says, 2 years? You've been dating her 2 years without me knowing? Which, to be fair, bro, he's your dad. I don't think your dad has to tell you when he's dating someone. He's a grown man. He can make his own decisions. You're his son, and of course, like, you have a right to know, which is why he told you about the marrying thing. But I don't know. I don't know how you. It depends with how you guys would feel. How would you guys feel if your dad didn't tell you he was dating someone, like, and dating again? And I guess it depends on the person. But so he basically responds with, "Well, you're insensitive, you know." He then gets mad and says, "So you don't have a photo of her or something?" And he says, "Well, you're gonna have to find out until Saturday, right? Because that's where he set up the meeting." And the son says, "Man, you always do everything fucking last minute, right?" And he tells his son another piece of good news, right? In the next panel, he says that he's going to have a sibling, which surprises the protagonist. He's like, a sibling? Did you really just say hear what I just said? Because I guess the protagonist has always wanted a brother or something. So he then goes on the soliloquy, says, Dad and I were already out of sync at this point. Right? So after hearing that, he basically says, nice, bro, nice remarriage, because I guess he wanted a sibling. So he says that his sister, or he didn't tell her, at the time he didn't tell her it was a sister. He just said your sibling is a year younger and that you're going to be a big brother. This hypes Brody out, so he then reiterates if he's going to be okay with it if he gets remarried, and the son says, yeah, go for it, Dad. He's really excited about having a sibling, right? He in the next panel, he's so excited, and he then thinks to himself, if only he can, like, confirmed if he was a brother or sister. This dumbass didn't even think of doing that, so he went in with no assumptions, and it also doesn't help that Akira, his sister, doesn't, like, you'll see what I mean as we continue, right? So our boy walks out, I guess starts walking toward the meeting point. It's now Saturday, or the time of date, where he's tired because his dad sent him ahead of him, right? Telling him, like, here's where his name finally gets dropped, Ryouta, that he has some urgent work matters, so he wants him to go ahead of him and notify them that he'll be a little late, right? So he thinks to himself, it's at times like these when you should go with your parents, right? Because he's like, damn it, Dad, what the hell are you thinking? What are you doing? He's also thinking to himself, it'll be awkward if I'm the only one who meets with the other family first, right? Because he's like, what the fuck, Dad? He then runs into what seems to be a younger boy, about a year younger than him, right? There's the kicker. What seems to be, keyword there, right? This boy is saying, what should I do? So our boy Ryouta approaches him and asks him what's wrong, causing our young boy to turn around surprised. We get a full panel of what the boy looks like. Very effeminate. You guys are seeing what I'm doing here. Very effeminate, very feminine looking boy, right? I don't know how our boy Ryouta didn't assume, right? But this is a very feminine looking boy, but he thought it was a boy at first glance. I mean, most people would too, considering this person is wearing male clothing, which is perfectly fine. It's more like a status statement, but it doesn't help with, like, identifying someone. So this surprises our boy Ryouta because he says, "Oh man, a pretty boy." Right? So this boy asks, like, "What is it?" And he says, Ryouta responds, "Nothing, man. Sorry." The boy then says, "If you'll excuse me," Ryouta then responds with, "Wait a minute," causing the boy to, like, nervously but kind of, like, annoyingly look back at Ryouta. In the next panel, he says, "Do you have some business with me?" Like he's doing, like, the bunched up hands, like, covering himself. He's like, and Ryouta thinks to himself, he's totally being worried of me. I mean, brother, you're not doing a good job at, like, communicating. You just come and stare at a person out of nowhere. You didn't even tell him your intentions. So he now starts to do that. He says, "I was wondering if something is troubling you." The boy says yes. You see that he's trying to find a location by the looks of it because he has his phone in his hand. Ryouta sees that and assumes, hey, you're lost, and boy says yes. Ryouta does the nice thing and asks him where he wants to go, which puts the boy in a very apprehensive look. He's like, The boy then responds in the next panel, "What does it matter to you where I go?" Ryouta says, "Look, man, it doesn't. I just thought I could help, right?" And for some reason, the boy, wink wink, thought, "Are you trying to hit on me?" Which shocks Ryouta. He's like, Bro, I know. He's like, Ryouta in his mind, he's like, bro, I'm not into dudes. I'm not trying to hit on you. As he says, like, later, he says, I have no interest in picking up boys, though. He says, well, certainly, if talking about a pretty boy, it's possible that he often gets approached by the same people of the same sex. So he pretty much makes this assumption that this boy always gets attracts, like, I guess, males, gay males, and it bothers him because he gets hit on a lot. So he tells him, I'm sorry, but continuing to the next panel, I'm not interested in you in the slightest, so don't worry. This sort of pissed off the boy, where he responds saying, there's something about the way you put that just bugs me. I guess it hurt his pride. I mean, there are nicer ways to say that. Like, if you're trying to, like, dissuade someone that you're not trying to hit on them, saying that you're not interested in them in the slightest is the meanest way to say it. You could just say, oh, look, I'm not trying to hit on you. I just want to help, right? So he then turns around and says, I see. If you're not in any trouble, I'll just go ahead on my way. The boy responds, wait, please. Ryouta turns back and says, what? He says, are you really just going to show me the way? Ryouta, like, almost disgusted with the insinuation, says, yeah, that was my intention from the beginning. Causing the boy to stare back like, Clearly, this boy has some trust issues, you know what I mean? This boy has some trust issues. Has some trust issues. As you see as I'm winking my eye. Trust issues. So this boy is so goddamn smug. Boy. He says, if that's the case, I'll let you talk to me. Kind of pissing off Ryouta a bit, saying, like, what a cheeky guy. He says, from the looks of it, he's a junior high student. Again, a year younger than him. Ryouta's a first year in high school. So he says, so where do you want to go? The boy responds that he wants to go to this restaurant called Western Style Dining, Kanon. Ryouta saying, oh, what's the coincidence? I was going to that restaurant too. Like, so this is kind of like setting things up for what's to come. Like, you know, the author's doing pretty good. So the boy responds, so you really are trying to hit on me? No, I really have business there. Because Ryouta saying that made the boy think I'm bad at the winking. I don't know, it looks ridiculous. Makes the boy think he's trying to hit on him. That's not the case. So they head to the restaurant. Ryouta points, says, look, we're here. The boy says, all right, that is the restaurant. That's what's written here. So he says, okay, good to help. I'm going to go in first because he has somewhere to be. The boy then responds with kind of like a sad look, saying, look, I'm sorry for doubting you. As Ryouta turns around to see, the boy says, isn't that wrong? And he said, Ryouta responds, isn't that wrong? It's thanks for bringing me here, right? Ryouta saying, you just say thank you. You don't need to feel bad about it. The boy says, thank you. Thank you very much. He goes inside, thinking to himself that he looks surprisingly cute, has a cute set as well. Again, if you weren't into boys, why are you saying these things, bro? But I guess he's confident in himself, so it's okay. It's just a kid lead people to have the wrong impression if you don't want to give that impression. So then we jump right into our boy Ryouta meeting his mom, his new stepmom, right? The dad apologizes to his son for having him come alone. It looks like he was fine and made it in time, right? The dad said, yeah, I rushed through work. So here comes the mother saying, Taichi-san, sorry to keep you waiting. Turns out the mom is a very beautiful woman. So she introduces herself. She talks to Ryouta first, saying, oh, so you're Ryouta-kun, I'm Miyuki. I've been going out with your father. Nice to meet you. And he says, nice to meet you as well. Thinking to himself, like, damn, this woman is gorgeous. Despite, like, she doesn't look like she's aged since she was 30. Which is true. The art style does make this woman look A1. So the dad hit big with this woman. He hit big. His dad can pull. I'll give Ryouta that, dude. Tai Chi-san can pull. Um, then the next panel, he's getting ready to meet his sibling, and he says, as he's thinking to himself, nah, don't think about your mom that way, as he's trying to like chastise himself for saying that his mom looks pretty, which is normally, I guess, a fine statement to think as long as you're not going that way. So, but I still get why he thinks that. He then realizes that his future sibling is the same boy that he met, and so he's like, ah. The boy responds, ah, and he says, oh, you're the one from earlier. The dad responds, oh, so do you guys already know each other? So he says, he thinks to himself, oh, so that boy was my little brother. There he goes. He made the assumption. He thinks he's his little brother because a girl, Akira, wears boyish clothes. I guess to sort of ward off people, or maybe she just likes boys' clothes. We don't know why, but he introduces himself with his full name, Ryouta Majima, and he asks for the boy's name. So the boy responds in a very cold manner with his hands on his arm, saying like, I'll say this first, I don't want you to get familiar with me, which sort of shocks Ryouta as he's putting out his hand for the handshake, and kind of hurts our boy. In the next panel, she continues and says, and uncle too, please do the same. And he, which again hurts the dad too. Poor Tai-Chi-san's catching strays out of nowhere. A girl, Miyuki's like, oh, I'm sorry, my child only talks in this manner. She's basically apologizing for her daughter being kind of rude. Again, she doesn't say it's a girl. We know she's a girl from the beginning, but our boy doesn't know here. So she introduces the boy, wink wink, to them. She says, this is my child Akira. Come on, Akira, you too. Akira begrudgingly says hello as the Tai-Chi's laughing while sweating because he thinks he made a bad impression. And I think he said it would be nice if you could gradually familiar yourself with me and my son, I hope. Anyway, let's sit down and eat, okay? So he kind of wants things to go well. He doesn't want to ruin his relationship with Miyuki and also give a bad impression to her daughter. So things are already starting out fucking horrible for this family of two men. So they had small talk, right? They're laughing, doing jokes, but Ryouta notices that everything in the atmosphere is going well, except Akira isn't really jiving with the conversation. He looks over and smiles to sort of like, show Akira that he's not scary, but Akira ignores him and thinks to himself, it seems that my younger brother despises me. Again, there it is. He's making the wrong assumption, but again, who can blame him? So the dad thinks, I think we should order the dessert. Is there anything you would like to have? So Taichi's trying to encourage himself, or not encourage him, try to make friends and show his kind side to Akira. Akira says that she's not in the mood for desserts as she's looking on the phone, which kills Taichi. As her mom responds, "Hey Akira," and poor Taichi's dying inside as tears are coming down his eyes. So our boy Ryouta goes to the bathroom, as he's thinking to himself about Akira not being able to read the air, or thinking to himself, or does he not care to? So he's probably thinking, is he against the remarriage, right? Which would be totally fine. Some kids have a hard time with their parents remarrying because they're not used to it, or they were really close to a previous parent. I don't think that's the case for Akira and her mom, but that does happen. So as he's walking out the bathroom in the next panel, he runs into Akira, or more like Akira went to look for him, and she says, "Hey," as she's fidgeting, or he in this case, wink wink. He basically says, "Hey, what is it?" Akira begrudgingly says, "Earlier, or rather, ever since we met, I've been giving you the cold shoulders." So she apologizes, or he apologizes, wink wink. I'm sorry. Ryota takes it in stride. He smiles like he's just thankful that he was wrong, like his impression of her was wrong. But he thinks, oh, dang it. He says, don't worry about it. I kind of understand. You are against our parents remarrying, aren't you? Akira automatically gets shocked and says, oh no, I'm not opposed to my mom's remarriage, I swear. And he's like, oh, okay. Which surprises our boy Akira because he thought that's the reason why she was being cold. I mean, that's the only reason, logical reason in his head, someone would be cold to you, even though Akira was very like receptive to him outside before meeting him again. So in the next panel, it continues. Akira elaborates further, saying, "But what about something like our respective space? I just don't want anyone to infringe on it." This makes Akira think to himself, "Infringed? Did something happen by any chance?" I think it has something probably to do with Akira's dad. Those of you can make an inference on what it could be. You know what it could be. It's not anything good. But Ryouta is a very smart, social boy. So he thinks to himself, yeah, but it's too early for me to pry into that, so he's not going to ask. He says, well, we're going to be family now, and I hope we can gradually work things out. Akira responds, you're right. We're going to be living together as family. It's only natural. Akira says, no. In the next panel, he elaborates and says, becoming a family and living together are two different things, though. And this surprises Akira. Our boy Ryouta brings in Mendel's laws, which he says Mendel's laws have nothing in common with blood, something like that. And this shocks Akira. He says, let's see. Families are usually blood related, right? But in our case, we both our parents and children lack that in each other. So he's basically saying, my dad isn't blood related to your mom, and I'm not blood related to you. My dad isn't blood related to you. Your mom isn't blood related to me. So we're not a blood related family. Completely. They're half blood related. He then goes on to say in the next panel, what's important is not what a family should be like. It's what a family wants to be like in relation to each other. He's saying that our relationships with each other and what we want to be to each other is more important than what a typical family looks like, right? He says, rather than blood relations, it's about transmitting feelings. Which Akira's like, transmitting feelings? He then goes on to explain, it's kind of like an approach of trying to communicate with the heart. He says, to put it simply, he just wants to become a good family for her. He just wants to become a safe space for her and someone that she can trust like family. That's a thumbs up for me. Akira's a good bro. Good bro. This sort of lights up Akira. She liked hearing that. She then responds with, aren't you embarrassed, saying that? Akira, with a sort of blushing thing, starts rubbing it back. Well, maybe a little. He then responds, are you against it? Akira then says, stop calling me you. So we're getting somewhere here with the relation thing. Akira says, you can just call me Akira. So they're getting closer. Akira's pretty bashful about it, though, considering she's sticking out her hand this time, unlike before where she didn't do that. And this shocks Ryouta, and he says, I see. He thinks to himself that this is probably the best compromise that Akira can make right now, because, again, she's not comfortable, or he's not comfortable, and he doesn't want to push it too hard or too fast. So he shakes her hand and says, then Akira, let's get along. And Akira responds with, yeah. So as him and his dad, Ryouta and Taichi, are walking home, Ryouta says that, hey, Akira's a good person, she's just a little awkward. His dad smiles back at his son and says, thank you, Ryouta. And he's like, oh, why are you thanking me, bro? That's kind of, stop it, bro. It's weird. His dad laughs and he says, I heard from Miyuki-san that Akira doesn't get along very well with people, which was kind of obvious from the get-go with what she was saying. So he says that he's relieved, and he's like, In the next panel, our boy starts to think, Back to the reaction with her, where she says that she doesn't want anyone to get familiar with her. She doesn't want anybody to infringe on her space, and that she's just okay. But she's cool with him calling her Akira. He then asks his dad, why does Akira want to be so distant from other people? He says, isn't it normal to be a little more amiable or amicable with others? And the dad responds, well, I don't know if that'll answer your question, but he thinks it's the right time to tell you, Ryouta. So he says, I'll tell you. So he goes on to say, actually, about Miyuki's ex-husband, anyway, I heard he was a terrible person. Kind of a given, considering Akira's reaction. Terrible person. He goes on to say, drinking, smoking, gambling were the norm for him. All terrible vices that could lead people to being very violent and kind of spiteful. He says he would abruptly leave the house for days, typical shit behavior, and even when he did come home, he didn't work. He was basically a lazy bum. He would just come in and take the money that Miyuki was making, because she was, makeup artist for these shows and shoots, and she does a pretty good job. So Ryouta responds with the same thing I've been thinking here. So he's a real good for nothing. He said, our boy Taichi's like, well, he was a man who chased his dreams, is what Miyuki said with a laugh. I guess Miyuki was trying to play it off, because she didn't want to. She kind of felt embarrassed and kind of like, yeah, maybe a bit in denial about it, but she married a better guy in Taichi anyways, so I think she did a better job. So he goes on to say, maybe because Akira grew up with a father like that, Akira is somewhat distrustful of men. I think something more happened with her dad than just, the drinking and gambling and smoking. That's obvious, but I'm going to leave that up for you guys to go on and read and learn about. Ryouta responds with affirmation, saying he doesn't think Akira's a bad kid, and they both agree. But again, Ryouta calls him a guy, and then he says, if Dad's guess is correct, it's not that he's like that just because it's us. It's because she would act that way toward any man. And he thinks to himself that there's only one thing I can do. We're gonna have to be good enough family for our Akira, so she can erase her past and paint over a positive one with positive male figures in her life rather than negative ones. And he says, isn't that right, Dad? Ryouta's dad calls out his name with a smile. He then goes back to think to the moment where he was talking about Mendel's Law with her. He's thinking it's not only just for Akira's sake, but also Dad's, Miyuki-san's, and for his own, right? They want to be a good family. And he says, so the dad responds, yeah, that's right, Ryouta. And so our boy Ryouta responds, just leave it to me, Dad. He's like, I'll handle Akira. I'll make sure that you feel comfortable. He says, even if he thinks I'm annoying, I'll get involved as much as I can so that Akira can spend time with everyone with a smile on his face. Again, wink, wink, to make him feel that he has found the best family. So our boy Ryouta has good intentions with all of this, but it kind of backfires on him, as you guys will see in chapter 2 when you guys read it for yourselves. So the dad responds, by the way, Ryouta, how do you plan to proceed with Akira? And he says, for the time being, I don't hate the cheeky junior. He says the guy has a cute side too. He says he's going to be a good, doting big brother. The dad thinks to himself, is that okay? Is that really okay? Going to be okay? Don't take it too far. Ryouta responds with, I know. Of course, that don't take it too far kind of flew over Ryota's head, as you guys will see when you read. The dad thinks to himself, well then, take care of Akira for me. I'm kind of worried now, though. The dad was perfectly right to worry about his son. Now I think about it, that dad, as he thinks to himself, Why didn't you tell me all that time that Akira's not my stepbrother? Yeah, no one corrected his assumption. He heard his dad say he's a good guy, and in most cases, he'd be like, oh, sometimes dudes call girls guys, but that's kind of misleading. He should have just said, hey, it's your sister, not your brother, but he didn't know. In the next panel, we see a girl, Akira, in more girly clothes this time, writing about Ryouta and thinking back to him saying he wants to be a good family, and she's writing in her diary saying that Ryouta was kind, but that he's a little weird. As that's the final panel, as she leans forward with a blushing face, and Ryouta, little think box says, but is actually my stepsister. It wasn't his brother, it was a stepsister. And that's how the first chapter for Jitsu wa Imouto deshita ends. It's pretty crazy. If you guys like these sort of, I guess, step sibling like romance stories, this is probably a good read for you guys. I enjoy it just because I think it's ridiculous, and the story of these kinds of stories always make me fucking laugh. There's always a nice little bit of drama. I don't know how to feel about the romance just yet. We'll see, but I think it's a good read so far. I think you guys should give it a read. You might enjoy it. There's a total of 31 chapters out now. It's still ongoing. As always, guys, links will be in the description below for you guys to be able to buy the mangas and stuff. I don't know if there's an English version yet, but there are the Japanese volumes, so I'll put those in the description. I'll also put a link to the website so you guys can read it online, as always. So yeah, that's gonna be this manga look. This story is fucking ridiculous. Give it a read. I know some of you guys might enjoy this, and that's all that matters. So yeah, thank you, and adios.